Hey guys, I want to look at a little bit more of chapter 15 of Exodus today, and we're going to go a little bit over into the wilderness. So the people, what we have just been reading was right on the other side of the Red Sea. When we talk about Moses' song, pretty much bodies are washing up and the people are singing. I mean, but you got to think the oppression, the death, the slavery, all the things that had happened to the Israelites to be free of the Egyptians. I mean, I can't imagine, how they felt in that moment. And so next, Moses leads the people of Israel away from the Red Sea, and they moved out into the desert of Shur. So they travel in this desert for 3 days without finding any water, it tells us in verse 22. So Moses, God's man, leads them away from the Red Sea, or really the Gulf of Aqaba is I think where they're at, is the Red Sea sits. This is the Gulf of Aqaba. Here comes down into the Red Sea. So it's a little offshoot. So they cross there. They're on the other side of that, and then off into the desert they go. Normally what they would have done, any traveler, they would have gone back up towards the Mediterranean and gone up the trade route. It commonly over the years became known as the King's Highway because it was how goods and people traveled from places from Egypt, and even on west of that, Libyan, as we think of modern day Libya, they would travel up through Israel next to the Mediterranean Sea, and then they could go into Turkey, they could go into Assyria. You would turn and go over and go down into the Fertile Crescent where you had Babylon. You go back to the days of Abraham with the city of Ur. So all of those things would have, they travel up and then they'd spread out because you had this gigantic Arabian peninsula that was just this big fat desert. Nobody traveled to the big fat desert. Well, God told Moses, go to the desert. So he leads them out there, and for 3 days they don't find any water. Now, 3 days doesn't sound like a very long time, but when you're without water for 3 days, you got problems. Right? This is a bad deal. So over the course of these 3 days, what we're going to see is the Israelites forget about who God is. Right? They forget about the Red Sea real quick when they get thirsty. And so they were looking for their physical needs to be met. And as we're going to see in our next section in verse 23, they're going to get real upset about this. But understand, God had a purpose behind this. God wasn't trying to just make them thirsty. God was trying to build faith in them and build reliance on Him because He understood the next steps, right? He understood Mount Sinai. He understood what was going to have to happen to enter the promised land. He understood all this, and their faith and trust had to continue to grow, and they had to trust God for everything. That's what God was doing. He's reducing them to trusting Him for everything. So you guys have a blessed day, and we're going to look at the rest of this tomorrow.